Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've made a cooking video for my channel, so I thought I'd share with you this recipe that I found in a Woman's World magazine while I was out lounging by the pool yesterday afternoon. This looks right up our alley, all of the ingredients we love. And it's interesting, a little twist on the marinade and the corn salsa. So I'm going to give this a whirl for dinner tonight because the YAs said, yes, go for it. So in addition to whipping up dinner tonight, I am doing some meal prepping to get the week started for my salads at work. And I'm going to do a few little side dishes as I go along. But here's the recipe that we're whipping up tonight. And if I can find a link for it, I will put it down in the See More Below box. But it was from this week's Woman's World, so you can still pick that up in any store if you don't want the magazine itself. But I'll hopefully find a link for you. Or you can pause the screen and take a screenshot. And we're going to get going on this, and hopefully it'll be delicious. So I'm going to start by making the marinade for the chicken. The recipe calls for garlic and herb rub. I don't have any of that per se, but I do have these dry Italian seasoning packets. So I figure that's real close to what they're talking about, and I'm going to use that and make it work, right? Plus, I have several of those, so I need to use them up. And the next ingredient is honey mustard, and it calls for 3 tablespoons. I'm only making half a recipe because the recipe itself calls for 4 chicken breasts, and I'm only doing 2. So you'll see me putting in half as much as what it calls for as we go along here. Now I'm adding some balsamic vinaigrette, and we all love that stuff. Then I'm going to add some olive oil. I had to make a run to Walmart this morning to get olive oil because I was completely out, which is a rare occasion. But I had tried to find some at my favorite store to buy it, which is Home Goods, on Friday. And Home Goods literally only had about 6 tiny little bottles on their shelf, which is really unusual for our store. So I skipped that. And obviously I can't live without having olive oil, so Walmart it was. And they have a surprisingly good selection these days, and this was the best quality I thought on their shelf. And it was about $14 for 33 ounces. It's organic, cold expeller pressed, although it says it was distributed in the USA. I don't know. I'm assuming it was made in the USA. I couldn't see anything that specifically said that one way or the other, but it was the best of the bunch, and that's what I went with. And the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons, I believe, or maybe it's 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Yeah, 1 tablespoon. So I used a half. And in goes the dry seasoning packet. And I'll give that a stir in a minute. This butternut squash, I've had in my veggie bits and bites bin. I'm going to roast that in the oven because that's the only thing I'm cooking in the oven tonight, so I can get this used up and use that in a salad this week. I'm going to also cook some barley to go in that salad, and this butternut squash will cook while I'm getting the rest of the dinner going. So here's the chicken. The recipe calls for slicing the chicken breast in half horizontally, and I decided there's like 2.5 in there, and I put the other one back because I know the girls and I aren't going to eat that much chicken. So the other one's going back in the freezer, and now I'm going to baste this chicken with this marinade. It is just the perfect consistency in my opinion. You know, some marinades are so thin they just sort of roll off the meat, but this is nice and thick. It calls for cooking this on the grill, but I just came in a little while ago from sunbathing and being in the pool and showered and washed my hair. So I don't want to fire up the grill because then I'll need to wash my hair again or go to work smelling like a campfire. So I'm going to cook it on a grill pan on the stove. Now here I am making the corn salsa, which we love corn salsa of any kind, but the little twist on this is it doesn't call for lime juice, it calls for orange juice, which is, a little different. And these green onions are from my little patio garden. I don't know about you guys, but it was just a couple of years ago that I started, when I bought packages of green onions at the store, I'd save the little bulb with the roots and put them in water and let them root a little bit, and then put them in pots of dirt. And I just kind of kept doing that, and I ended up with 3 pots of green onions that have been going strong for, a couple of years now. And I just pop out there, and I mostly just cut off the green part. But today, for this particular recipe, I know if you get the meaty bulb part in there too, it's a little better than just the green. So that's what I went for. And my green onions are getting a little thin out there. I think I might have to actually buy a package and do a little more planting in a few weeks now that I know I'm staying. The garden kind of took a back seat thinking I was moving next month, and now I'm not. And here's a little tiny bit of cilantro from my garden. I don't know why, but I have the worst time trying to grow cilantro, thyme, and parsley here in South Florida. It doesn't matter if I keep it in the mostly shade or try to grow it in the cooler season. It just doesn't seem to do well, but I managed to get that little bit, and thank goodness. So the recipe calls for salsa, a chunky salsa, and I will put some of that in, but I have a couple of Roma tomatoes that need to be used up, so I'm going to chop one up here and put that in there, and then use about half as much of the salsa that it calls for. And paste happens to be our favorite. And I think this is going to be a nice mixture, because I think if you used all salsa, it would be a little bit on the wetter side than I want. The magazine shows putting the salsa on the side and kind of eating it like a side dish rather than topping it like a relish. So that's why I say I don't want it to be too runny. And then adding a little salt and pepper, and got the orange juice in there. Now mixing it up, and it sure is pretty, so colorful. I love colorful dishes. Eat the rainbow, right? And it smells amazing. That little bit of orange juice really makes it seem fresh. And here's a peek at it. And I'm gonna put a lid on that and put it in the fridge to chill while the rest of dinner gets going. And now here I am checking over the sweet potatoes. I bought these a couple of weeks ago, and this is the first time I've opened the bag. I got them at Aldi, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes Aldi produce just does not hold up for very long, so I was not sure on these, but they're all perfectly fine. And even these, though these aren't huge, they'll be plenty big for the girls and I. And I'm gonna give them a rinse and pop them in the microwave while I'm cooking the chicken. And who doesn't love a good sweet potato? All right, now I'm getting with it and preparing some of the items that I'm going to use in making salads for the coming work week. I'm going to make the zucchini cassoulet that I've had a previous video on. So if you want to see that in detail, I'll link that below. But I'm going to make a little bit of barley to go with the butternut squash, kale, and pepita seed salad, which will also have feta and a citrus vinaigrette. And then I'm also going to make some lentils to go in that zucchini cassoulet. And, those just cook on the stove while I'm getting the chicken done. And I figured, why not just get her all done at once? It kind of seems like I'm trying to take on a lot here, but this is just, very basic, and I'm going to get it going and then focus on dinner. All right, so here's our finished meal. The chicken turned out terrific. We all really enjoyed it. It's just a slightly different flavor profile. And, it's so fun to have a meal that's just a little different than you usually eat, right? The girls and I all enjoyed it, and the girls especially raved about the corn relish, and we enjoyed the sweet potatoes and the Italian bread. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.